Welcome to Dear Diaspora, a podcast celebrating the African diaspora and the changemakers, innovators, and entrepreneurs working to make our world a better one to live in. I'm your host, Ndulwa Kowa. Let's get started. Thank you for tuning in to episode 5 of Dear Diaspora. For this episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with Away to Africa founder Tiffanie Anderson. So a little bit about her story. So she's an attorney, and after doing like a semester abroad in South Africa in 2006, she fell in love with South Africa, and she came back to the U.S. and worked as an attorney for a while, and then something just kept calling her back to Africa. And so she launched this amazing company called Away to Africa. It's a destination management company dedicated to providing guided cultural tours throughout select countries in Africa. If you don't follow Away to Africa on Instagram, please do. I love their feed and just all the images that they share. And they always have really great captions and stories behind the photos that they share. So please give them a follow. And I really hope that you enjoy our conversation. She was actually calling from Ghana, which I thought was super cool. And so, yes, if you enjoy the conversation, let me know. You can always send me an email at deardiasporashow@gmail.com. Or if you follow Dear Diaspora on Instagram, you can always send me a DM. So, yes, here's my conversation with Tiffanie Anderson. So, yeah, Tiffanie, thank you so much for being a guest on Dear Diaspora. I am so excited to have a conversation with you. I've admired your work and what you do with Away to Africa for a while now, so I'm so happy to be having this conversation.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
For sure. Okay, so my first question is where are you from? For those that may not know, and what's your experience been like, or what was your experience like growing up in the U.S.?
So, I'm originally from Queens, New York. I was born in Jamaica, Queens. Grew up in Far Rockaway and, other parts of Jamaica, Queens. I lived in New York for some time. Afterwards, I moved to Atlanta and then eventually ended up in South Florida. I attended high school at Douglas and I went to college, university at FAMU, Florida A&M University. Then I attended law school back in New York at St. John's University School of Law. So I mean, growing up in the States in the 80s, it's a different, it was a different time than growing up in the States now. It was a bit more safe. This is before social media. So this is when children were actually playing outside, and despite, you know, and then when I was up until the age of maybe 7, growing up in the projects, you didn't really know that you were growing up in the projects because
Mm-hmm.
of the experiences that you had with other children. And another thing, my mom always put me in schools where I was able to excel and I was able to go and participate in advanced classes. They really monitored um, my development and I guess my ability to learn ahead of the curve. So despite I was initially raised in Hamels projects and then moved across the street to Dayton's in Queens, New York. So, but I never knew I lived in the projects. It was certain instances where the crack epidemic was huge during the 80s. So that
Mm-hmm.
I took notice of, but I had a very grounded upbringing with my family from, both my mom's side and also my biological father's side.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so did you grow up knowing you wanted to, did you know you'd end up studying law at all? Or was that something that just interested you as you grew older?
Funny enough, I think subconsciously I wanted to be an attorney because my mom was an attorney. Well, and she didn't become an attorney until we moved to Atlanta, but I remember having to do a presentation in class about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I don't know if my mom was studying to get into law school at that time, but in my mind, I always wanted to be, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer from middle school. And that was the time that the Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks Philadelphia movie came out. And so I
Oh,
played a
wow.
portion of the movie in class explaining why I wanted to be an attorney. So subconsciously, I always knew I wanted to go to law school. I deviated from that a little bit when I went to college, but by the time I was graduating FAMU, going into my last year, I was studying for the LSAT. So I don't know where it stemmed from, but I think it's subconsciously with my mom wanting to go to law school and eventually going to law school and graduating.
Wow, that's so cool. And so have you so you're still like a practicing attorney, right?
Sort of, kind of. So even now, I still take on certain clients. I'm licensed in New York and also Florida. And before getting into, working with Away to Africa, which education was the seed that which was planted within me to start Away to Africa. I did a study abroad program studying law at the University of Western Cape in South Africa. And that was my first introduction to the continent. And I learned about that opportunity while in law school. And that was really a pivotal point in my life, which changed the direction of where I wanted to go. So in law school, I knew I was going to do entertainment and real estate. Even when I graduated law school, I was working with a Brazilian real estate firm and then a Brazilian real estate law firm. And I just knew I was going to just sell real estate all of my life. And I split it down the middle with wanting to do entertainment law as well. But when I graduated from law school, I shifted primarily to real estate. And then it just was working in that industry, and just a series of events led me to saying, okay, let me move forward with that seed that was planted years ago to find a way for me back to the continent and get others to the continent as well.
Wow.
So education really was my vehicle into getting to the continent and ultimately starting the company.
That's so cool. And so what would you say was your first impression of South Africa, since that was, like the first African country that you had visited? Like what was it like when you first got there?
I was I was baffled. I was beyond it was beyond my wildest dreams, because when I visited it was 2006. So two things about 2006. One, it's still remnants of apartheid, because apartheid was it still was less than a decade ago that apartheid ended. And for those who don't know, apartheid is basically a regime that was imposed on South Africans, where they pretty much set up a caste system where at the top of the system it was Afrikaners, which are white South Africans. Then you had Indians. Then you had colored. Colored is if you're mixed with anything, you're colored. And then you had Africans at the bottom of this caste system. And Africans were denied from traveling, living, working in certain areas. And it was really in its most perfect way, like the most perfect fine tuned form of racism. And this is in the 90s that it was going on. So traveling to South Africa in 2006, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I had no idea, because this is pre Instagram. This is before Africa was trending. So prior to going, I had preconceived notions, obviously. And then when I went, it was insanely beautiful. The people were beautiful. They were saying welcome home, but we were also kind of spoiled as law students. We lived in the most amazing flats in V&A waterfront. I lived better in South Africa than I did while I was living in the States. So to
Wow.
see to yeah, it's a lodge in a place where I go on a terrace and it's a backdrop of a mountain, and then it's the ocean on another side, and then Cape Town is just Absolutely gorgeous. So I call South Africa the soft landing into the continent. It's very well advanced. It's quite commercialized, very beautiful. So for those looking to travel to the continent, they're a little bit unsure or hesitant. South Africa is an easy way to start off with navigating the continent. So my first experience, just was mind blowing to see how beautiful it was, but still also to learn that it was Africans all the way across the world experiencing the same thing that blacks experience in the states. So, and maybe through sufferation we connect, but also just understanding that it's okay to come to Africa,
Mm.
to visit, to move, to invest, to go to school. It was just eye opening to know that everything that exists in the States, it exists in Africa, and then to the 10th power.
Wow, that's so cool. I've always wanted to visit South Africa. It's like definitely on my list of place countries in Africa to visit. And so you were there in 2006, and then you started Away to Africa, like officially in, was it 2015?
It was 2015, 2016 because, as I mentioned, I came out with other plans and then God had another plan for me. So I would initially, when I first left South Africa, I kept telling all my friends, like, it's not what they're telling us. You need to go, you have to go visit. But I was like a one-man campaign. But I had a couple friends who took me up on my advice, and they actually went. I had a friend who visited, and then she ended up moving. Had another friend who visited, and I said, it would be a pretty dope idea if I could do this, on a larger scale, with connecting people and somewhat being a liaison to get people to the continent. So it was an idea that I had, and I sat on it for years, and then went through a few jobs, and I was at an in-between job. I was hustling, and then I saw a friend of mine start a business before my eyes while at that job, and I was like, you know what, I have this idea that I've sat on for years, almost 10 years, and it's a great idea. Let me get started with it now. And I went and I started working on the website that day.
Wow.
So yeah, initially how I started. And I also God sends angels to work through you. You just have to open up your eyes and your ears. I went to get my hair done from somebody off of Craigslist, and it was a horrible job. But it was a young lady there, and we started talking about revolutionary things and Africa. And she was like, I always wanted to go to Africa. And I said, you know what? I have this company I want to open. And she said, if you open a company, I will be your first client. I will pay you. I will save up my money. And every month or two, she would text me, is the website up? Is the
Oh
website
my
up?
gosh.
To get started. So she was my pushing, like she was my angel who pushed me to actually get the ball rolling and saying, look, I'm going to tell people, I'm going to go, and to know that, okay, if I have this started, I already have my first client. That really was the motivation behind getting things done, because she would text me on cue every month or two. You have the website up? When are you going? Can you send me the itinerary? So it was about 8 months going back and forth before I finally kicked off, and I finally said, listen, the website's up. So yeah, that's another reason why I got started with everything.
Oh my goodness. And so like when you like first launched, did you have like just one tour then, or did you have like multiple?
I had multiple tours. I started out with 4 countries. And the funny enough is that young lady, her name is Naya, she was supposed to be the first client, but when we launched the company, I ended up moving to Jamaica to launch the company because I just wanted a fresh sense of energy, and I was over the states. This is a lot of killings going on. This was after Trayvon Martin. A lot of things that was being publicized and put into the media. And I just was over the states. I was over driving to work in a meaningless job. So I moved to Jamaica, and it was a reggae concert that I put on with the help of others and with a large sponsor. And I said, Way to Africa presents Midnight in Kingston. And we had this reggae show in Kingston. And at that show, we had a booth with all information. I went on stage and I talked about the company. And right and there, it was a young lady who came to me. She contacted me a week later and was like, I saw you at the show. I want to go. So initially, South Africa with Naya was supposed to be the first tour, but the way God is, this girl was like, look, I want to go to Ghana. I want to go to Ghana and I want to go in 3 weeks.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that's so initially I was trying to convince her not to go, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to plan, but if you just promise me you can roll with the little hiccups, because no matter how much I plan, this is Africa. Some things are going to happen. So it just actually marked 3 years since that first tour to Ghana, and I'm in Ghana now. It was August of 2016 that me and this young lady named Tika, and we went and we explored Ghana, and that was the first tour. And I started with 4 countries: Ghana, Ethiopia, South Africa, and it was supposed to be Mozambique. So we launched with 4 countries.
Oh my goodness. So you said you're calling from Ghana right now?
Yes, I'm in Ghana and I'm in Accra now.
Oh my goodness. I feel like Ghana is just like it's also on my list of places to go. Like, so are you currently like on a tour or
I just finished a tour to Benin and Togo, which is also West Africa. And then I just was meeting with my team here in Ghana to prepare for December's tour because, as many know, with the year return, it's an influx of travelers coming to Ghana. It's going to be insane. So we just were walking through everything. I like to meet people face to face. I like to spend a lot of time on the ground. So the thing is, in December, Africa has 3 tours running simultaneously. So we have a Senegal tour, we have a Ghana tour, and then we have Zanzibar in South Africa. So I'm just going to drop into Ghana for a few days and then go to South Africa. So I came here to spend time on the ground with the team, talk about the details of the tour and fine tune everything, make sure everything was okay with the accommodations. Went there. I like to look people eye to eye because when it comes to business and the clients, I don't play. So at least I can know your
mm,
name and you can know how serious I am. So when it's time the tour comes around, we're not figuring anything out, and this is not going to be our first hellos. So that's really is just a planning. I just came from before being in Togo. I was in Senegal doing the same thing with the tour guide, just making sure everything is going to be good for December, because a lot of it is, most people are visiting the continent for their first time, and they're spending thousands of dollars. Their experience has to be amazing. And the only way that can be amazing is with a great team and preparation.
oh my gosh. And so how do you go about like recruiting a team or putting a team together like in the different countries?
I go off of recommendations, really word of mouth. Um, I I spend a lot of time on the ground. I've been coming to Ghana for about 7, 8 years, but I switched tour companies, which tour operators, so I'm going to team with on the ground. Every country that we offer tours to, we have a team on the ground in that country. It doesn't matter. I've been to Ghana 10, 12 times. I would never lead a tour from Ghana because this is not where I'm from. Even if we have our main tour guide, when we go to different cities, we still pick up local tour guides. That's the way we feed money into the community, and then you're also getting someone who specializes in that area. So, I forgot the initial question.
Oh, I think it was
Oh,
how do
how
you
do
go
I
about
recommend the team?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So through recommendation. So this guide was recommended from someone I know for 10 plus years, and that person's now in the tourism industry. My Senegalese guide, I actually had to switch him last minute, and one of my competitors is a friendly competitor. I'm not sure if you know of Black and Abroad, who they're huge. They do great marketing, the Black and Abroad shirts. I'm cool with the owners, and they recently started doing tours. So it was a night before I had to switch out my guide for whatever reason. So I contacted Eric from Black and Abroad, like, yo, bro, slide me in, do me a favor. And they understand that, I'm traveling alone as a woman. So I know they're going to recommend someone who's trustworthy, who knows what they're doing. So all of my other, I meet tour guides also through, I attend tourism. expos. And when you're at tourism expos, you meet those who are, you meet tour guides, you meet transportation operators, you meet those representing hotels. So through tourism expos such as in Daba in South Africa, I work closely with South African tourism, so they'll host me and bring me to these tourism forums to make those connections. So I would say primarily it's about being on the ground. Secondly, it's about having strong relationships. That's why, and even my competitors, I try to become cool with the owners because it's enough room for everyone. There's a multi-billion dollar industry. Everyone can live comfortably. So, yeah, spending time on the ground, relationships, and making sure we attend those tourism expos is how we build our teams.
Oh my gosh, that's so impressive. Like that just sounds like
Mhm.
such a cool job or gig that you have. And so like how do you like I saw like your website has like 15 tours currently. Like how do you go about like picking like the next destination? Like is it based on like people's feedback and stuff, or is it like something that you pick, or like how does that work?
A combination of things. I would say on maybe 15%, 15 to 20% are from client feedback and the countries they're asking for. But clients don't really know what they want. You create the itinerary for them and you tell them what they want. Because I have traveled, our team has traveled. They know how to put together we know how to put together an itinerary with the client in mind. So a small percentage comes off of the demands of the clients, but it's really about staying in tune and staying in the know of what's going on within the Africa travel industry. I'm always reading articles. I'm in a few travel tourism groups, even on WhatsApp, just to see what the trend is now and moving forward in the future. Like right now, and even having tour guides who invite me for educational tours so I can come and learn about the country and say, okay, this is actually somewhere we should consider listing as the next destination. For instance, Rwanda. Rwanda is a country that I was like, I don't. And I have tour guides who, like every 2 months, the consistency, come to Rwanda, come to Rwanda. So I'm partnering with two young ladies out of South Africa who have their tour company, and we're going to do like a creative business link with travelers from throughout the world, even travelers from throughout Africa, who are going to bring to Rwanda to meet with like-minded individuals and have different classes and breakout sessions and team building exercises. So it's really about keeping your ear to the ground and educating yourself on what are the countries to consider before it becomes popular. Like Ghana right now, if you're not, every 2 seconds I see a new company popping up offering tours to Ghana. We've been doing tours to Ghana for over 3 years. This is one of our first tours were to Ghana. So you want to stay ahead of the curve instead of once a destination becomes popular, then adding that to your itinerary.
Totally. And so would you say Ghana is like one of your most popular right now still?
South Africa is South Africa is always the most popular because
Nice.
it's a yeah because it's an easy landing into the continent. So and then also South Africa tourism is they have a strong tourism presence with the board. Now Ghana has changed because it's the first African nation that has collectively welcomed Africans throughout the diaspora to say welcome home. And they have a calendar of events, and you can go to different cities, throughout Ghana and know what's going on. So they definitely have set a precedent for other African nations to follow with finding a way to welcome people back home to the continent, because it's one thing to go and visit and try to navigate your way. It's another thing for people to say, welcome home. You should travel. We're welcoming you with open arms.
Totally. That's so beautiful. And like on average, like how big is like a group like when you do the tours?
On average, it's usually 10 to 15, but Our December tours tend to go upwards to 30.
Oh, wow.
Um, Next year, we're planning groups that's going to be quite a bit larger, but our rule is for every 10 travelers, we have one tour guide. So you never will feel like you're lost in a bunch where it's 25 people walking down and one person guiding them. So we always personalize the trip despite how many people are on the tour.
Wow. That's so cool. And so, like, I wanted to ask, so are you, so like, I love your social media presence, like Instagram specifically. Are you like the person that's managing all that, or do you have like people that are like helping you with it?
I definitely have a team. I have a team, I have a good team. I can't stand social media, honestly. That's one thing. If I could delete that out of my daily schedule, I would. So, back when we had like 700 followers, that was me trying to figure it out and piece it together with grainy photos. But now with time, we're finding really our footing in our branding and even introducing Faces of Africa, where the middle picture focuses on a specific person from Africa or doing something on the continent, a different artist. Or like I just visited, it was a Tobe artist, and his name is Dr. Tikwe, if I'm not mistaken, out of Accra, and he creates artwork, and his installations are made out of the plastic water bottles, water jugs, the huge, like the yellow ones where there's petrol or water that's being transported. He cuts them up and piece them together and makes beautiful art pieces. So we made him, we highlighted him as a face of Africa and talked about his installations and went and visited him. So just finding a footing with really telling a beautiful narrative of Africa, which is not just painted around the animals and safaris of the continent, but really focusing on the people. We're still trying to find our footing for people to know, okay, we're providing information, but we also do tours as well. So I think that's just it. But we do have an amazing team. That's definitely not me on social media. Definitely
And,
not.
and so, like, how big is your team? And, like, how do you go about communicating with them if they're, like, all over all over the continent? And then I know you have, like, a team in Florida also.
Well, that's our office is out of Florida, but we have our team members are in Jamaica. It's about five, six of us because we have two who do the graphic arts who are in Jamaica. The person who's director of operations and also is a website developer. She's in Jamaica. Then our social media team. One is from Angola but lives in South Africa. The other is British Ghanaian but lives in South Africa also. And then I'm traveling back and forth. So the best way is always WhatsApp. Everything we do is on WhatsApp. So yeah, and you have your Google now technology. You don't need to sit next to a person. You can literally like we are now hop on Skype. Doesn't matter where you are, just align your time zone and make it happen.
Totally. Wow. I mean, this is all like super inspiring, and I'm sure people listening are going to be very intrigued by your story and hopefully inspired as well. Um,
Okay.
and so, what would you say has been like one of your biggest challenges, like growing your company and specifically like doing business in Africa? Like, has there been one standout thing that you
I
think?
would my accent. I have to learn. I really look at myself. I don't blame others. So I have to learn more languages. So ideally I would like to learn Zulu and also Swahili and French. And I think once I'm able to learn other languages, it will help with a lot of things because people will respect you, and then as soon as they hear you that you were born in the States, you have an English accent, it is a misconception of, here comes this American coming in to, tell us about how she can help us or come with it. this mindset, which unfortunately it is somewhat true. That it's not even a misconception. It is it's what realistically happens. A lot of people come over and say, I'm a business owner and I have money. I'm coming over here and this is what I want to do, without going and listening to the people in the community and teaming with people on the ground and things like that. So because they've experienced it so much beforehand, I kind of expect that when I sit down and I speak with people. Like I had a meeting with someone and we were communicating. And then when I came in, I came in with someone else. The guy across the table who we were meeting, he looked as if I wasn't even there, looked and turned to the guy and said, "She's American?" And he asked him twice, like he could not believe it, because I can pass for whatever. I can pass for South African. I can pass for Guinea. I can. When I was in Senegal, everywhere I travel, they speak to me in their local language when they first start speaking to me. The thing is, I always say, don't be fooled by my accent. Like, I'm well traveled. I have respect for where I am, the culture, the mannerisms. Like, I'm not coming in with a, oh, respect my ways, as and I don't even consider myself an American. But I think my biggest holdback, my biggest strong code, I guess you would say, is I need to speak. I need to learn other languages. And that also shows that you've taken time to learn their language, which is a sign of respect as well.
Totally, totally. I agree. And would you say, so for people that are looking to do business in Africa, whether it's like in the tourism industry or, some other industry, what would you say is like another piece of advice? Like, besides like, making sure that you partner up with people like actually living there, like what else do you think would be like a great tip or strategy for them?
I think you just have to respect people's culture. For people who are looking, if I'm not mistaken, you ask people who are looking to travel and explore Africa, like what tips can I provide?
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to understand that you're coming into someone else's home. We've been taught so long that in the States, America is the biggest, grandest, best country in the world. The Even intentionally that America was painted as a larger country than the continent of Africa on the globe. We grew up thinking that. And it is a superior complex that we have when traveling. And your US passport really doesn't go but so far. You still have to pay visas and get your visas crossing these borders, where if I were to travel on a Jamaican passport, I would travel visa free. So it's just, when you travel, whether it's Africa, whether it's to Indonesia or whatever, you should humble yourself and leave the mindset of where you're traveling from at that airport, and get on that airplane with an open mind and open heart to learn about the history of the country, about the culture of the country, and the people of the country. And if you go there with that mind frame, you will have an amazing time. But if you go over there and it's like, oh, you don't do this, and you go, well, back home, and if I had, leave that at the airport, leave that near departing city.
I totally agree because it's almost like pointless for you to try and travel when you're like going to constantly compare it to, where you're coming from.
Correct.
And so, the last question I had for you is like, what inspires you about Africa's future?
The youth, our generation and future generations. I think we can all admit that there is a psychological awakening. There's a conscious awakening, I can say, and it's a shift in the way that we're thinking, where we're actually starting to question things now. When we were younger growing up, we were told by our parents and our grandparents, this is the way it is. That's it. Don't question it. Don't question God. Don't question the Bible. And now we're at the phase where we're starting to unlearn. We have to unlearn so many things that was taught to us. Be willing to relearn and find a new way to think and have a different perspective on life. And with that, we have to understand the percentage of of children between certain ages and are considered as youth in Africa, and they are going to be the ones who's going to take that torch and lead us into greatness. And I think a lot of older politicians and a lot of older people in power need to bring a youth on board and teach them the way. So it's someone who's older who can tell you, okay, this is what went on previously, which works, and what's not working now. And then the youth can come with an innovative mindset. Because remember with technology, how often do you talk to someone older and they're like, oh, we don't even know how to work that? No, you must incorporate that into what we're doing in the future so we can excel. So our future, which Africa is not the future, Africa is now. But we must engage our youth and find different programs and find different stop depending on the government to create jobs. We must be innovative, even with tourism, to start finding ways to generate income and things for youth to do in the community. So I think everything revolves around the youth. If you don't have a millennial on your team with what you're working on, I don't want to say you're doomed to fail, but pretty much you're doomed to fail. You must include the youth. And that really is how I feel with everything that I'm doing now. Is our team has to have young, fresh faces, and let us know what's going on. So I think that's the key. And also working with people on the ground there. It's impossible to go to an African country and try to do something without involving those on the ground there.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I completely agree that, the youth are our future and we need to do a better job, to like provide them with resources and things like that to make sure that they're actually, you know, like equipped with the necessary tools to, like be entrepreneurial or, access education and all those things. So I 100% agree.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you. And the only other question is how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about A Way to Africa or just you?
So everything is Away to Africa. So the email is info at awaytoafrica.com, and that's AWAYTO Africa.com. Our social media is Away to Africa. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter is Away to Africa. And that's the best way to if you the one thing is on Instagram I do check the DMs sometimes, but our team members usually check it and will highlight like, hey, you should reach out to this person. But we answer all emails for the most part, all messages and things of that sort. So I'm always readily available.
Aw, thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate this conversation. And I will make sure to, share all your social media handles and things like when promoting this episode. So I look forward to seeing what people think about our conversation. So.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
So Tiffanie is goals. I just absolutely love what she's doing with A Way to Africa. I hope that you're inspired to travel to Africa at some point and, go on one of her tours. If you are, don't forget to visit awaytoafrica.com and follow their social media at A Way to Africa as well. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with someone and also leave Dear Diaspora a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening to Dear Diaspora. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes. You can find us on Instagram at Dear Diaspora or visit our website at deardiasporashow.com. Thank you and talk to you next week.